The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call the Honourable Member Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. The provision of industry training and the availability of apprenticeships is a vital part of ensuring that we actually have economic growth and innovation in New Zealand. We need more people with skills in our workforce. If we have a more skilled workforce, it will drive productivity. If we drive productivity, there will be better economic outcomes, higher wages, more growth for the New Zealand economy, more opportunities for New Zealanders. If we have people in apprenticeships, we'll be growing the next generation of workers who will be providing the engine room of that economic growth and innovation. We will be giving people, young people especially, the opportunity for a career, to get under their belt a trade and a skill, given guidance around that by those who have experience. Industry training and apprenticeships are such an important part of our economic future and indeed of our society, which is why, Mr Speaker, we on this side of the House are so disappointed that we are unable to support this legislation. Because there is in this legislation a couple of pretty good elements. The first of those is the creation of the New Zealand Apprenticeship Scheme, because that brings together the range of different kinds of apprenticeships and industry training programs under one umbrella. It addresses an issue which on this side of the House we acknowledge, which is that when Labor brought in the modern apprenticeship scheme, we had to do that off the back of having apprenticeships destroyed by the national government in the 1990s. We deliberately focused on opportunities for young New Zealanders because that is what had been taken away when the apprenticeship scheme was disestablished in the 1990s. What the New Zealand apprenticeship scheme that is brought in under this bill does is expand that out to people from older age groups. And we accept that that is an important thing to do. There is a need nowadays for retraining for a lot of people when they're older. It's not just about young people, and we believe that this is a good element of the bill to create a more coordinated apprenticeship scheme. We also accept that there has been a need for some reorganisation of industry training. We're not ashamed of the fact that many more people got the opportunity to undertake industry training and to get new skills under the last Labor government. Maybe there were one or two people who didn't complete their qualifications. It would have been good if they had, but at least we had a government that was prepared to invest in skills in our workplaces. And so when the opportunity to reorganise the sector has come along, it's a good thing. And industry training organisations have responded, Mr Speaker, to the need to reorganise themselves. And we welcome the fact that they are now leaner and more efficient entities. They are two good things that are in this bill and that we could support. But on top of that, we have a government whose ideological agenda means that they want to impose on the industry training sector a contestable model of funding, a privatisation of the sector. And let's be absolutely clear, Mr Speaker, the purpose of industry training, the reason that the government funds industry training is the availability, and this is to quote from the officials, of a common transferable set of qualifications that consider the needs of the industry as a whole. That is akin to a public good which is unlikely to emerge without government intervention. That's the purpose of industry training, creating a skilled workforce that can move between businesses, that ensures that they have skills that transfer across industries. So why bring in a system of funding that directly funds employers? Isn't this training, isn't this the government that should be telling us we're not going to pick winners, we're not going to privilege people? No, this government says, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to ensure that we can directly fund those employers to deliver the training. No guarantees, as the Minister might claim, that that will be a transferable qualification or skill. In fact, it's highly likely to be a qualification that is relevant pretty much only for that business. And as my colleague Tracy Martin has raised before, who are the businesses who are going to want to do this? Are they the minister's mates? Are they the people who've got the minister's ear? Because they're being set up in a completely different way, Mr Speaker, to the way that ITOs are. The minister made a big thing in his speech of the fact that ITOs are prevented from setting up private training establishments to deliver training. Well, the new clause enables these private businesses to not only organise the training but to deliver it as well. So the very thing that the Minister is denying to industry training organisations, he's delivering to his mates. He's privatising it and allowing them to both organise the training and deliver the training. He's the one setting up two different standards within the system for employers, for these individually funded employers and for ITOs. Mr. Speaker, at the Select Committee, submitter after submitter said to the government, don't do this. Do not create this situation. The only submitter who demurred from that was Business New Zealand, who said that they gave qualified support to the idea, but they thought there needed to be a review to see if it was necessary. That's Phil O'Reilly speak for God's sake, don't do this. It's a terrible idea and it'll ruin everything. Phil O'Reilly's the only person who came to the committee with even that level of lukewarm support. Everybody else, from the Contractors Federation to the CTU to other employers, said, please don't do this because you will undermine industry training organisations. Far from this great competitive model that's going to lead to these high-performing industry training organisations, the only people who can take this up, the only businesses who can take up this direct funding are the big businesses. And the small businesses who rely on a strong ITO to enable them to deliver training are the ones who will suffer from an industry training organisation that doesn't contain any longer the large employers who contribute more money to those ITOs. So not only does it undermine the purpose of industry training, it undermines the industry training organisations the Minister purports to support. This, Mr. Speaker, is a very retrograde step when it comes to industry training. There is already flexibility within the ITO model. Employers are perfectly entitled to move between different ITOs. And in the reorganisation process, a number of businesses have done that, have aligned themselves with a different ITO than the one that they were in. The Minister is trying to address a problem, as he often does, that is not here, in order to implement his own ideological view about the privatisation of education. And it makes no difference if it's charter schools or PPPs to build schools or this privatisation of industry training. It has an agenda from Stephen Joyce and the national government to undermine the public provision of education and training, and in this case, the training that takes place through ITOs. Mr. Speaker, I want to make it absolutely clear that on this side of the House, we see no need for these changes. We do not believe they are good for industry training. They are not going to be good for the trainees involved if they end up with skills that are not transferable. And I ask the question again, why is the government paying for it? This is meant to come from the party that believes it's somehow or other a great steward of the economy. It decides it can directly chuck money at its mates and say, you deliver the training, instead of strengthening those industry training organisations. Mr. Speaker, the second reason why the Labor Party cannot support this bill is the abolition of the skills leadership function. Industry training organisations have had the legislated and mandated role of looking at the skills that are required within their industry and saying, how will we provide these in the future? Being the body that says this is where we need to go. We had a great submission from Career Force who said that they had sat down with the Health Workforce New Zealand and looked at the future skill needs for those people who look after our elderly, who look after our disabled in the community. No one else was doing that, but the ITO got in there and did it. They played their skills leadership role. That role disappears. It's gone. And we have to hope that a government department will pick up that idea. It's not mandated to do it, we just have to hope they will. Well, on this side of the House, we actually believe industry should be leading it. We actually believe business knows more about it than government does. But no, all of a sudden the National Party's decided they know better. They've arrogantly dismissed the role of industry in this. We cannot support a bill that has no one responsible for working out what skills we need in industry in New Zealand in the future. That's irresponsible. It's the kind of short-term thinking we've come to expect from this government. So this bill, Mr. Speaker, we will be strongly opposing. We have strongly opposed. We will turn back these changes when we get back into government because we want a strong, publicly funded industry training organisation arrangements and apprenticeships that give New Zealanders the skills that lends to the productivity gains that we need and that ensure that all trainees are getting skills that they can use across an industry. Mr. Speaker, this bill is deeply flawed. It's an ideological response to a problem problem that is not there, and it will undermine industry training and apprenticeships in New Zealand.
Dr. Cam Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We